Don't be afraid of spiritual solitude. Sometimes solitude feels like it's consuming us, leaving a hollow emptiness that tightens the chest. But what if that solitude isn't just an absence, but a subtle presence? A presence we only truly feel when the noise of the world fades away. It's curious how retreat can seem so frightening. So often we flee from it, as if it were a sign of weakness or a burden we don't want to carry. But deep down, there's something different there. Something Chico Xavier always sensed. Spiritual solitude can be an invitation to reconnect with ourselves, to listen to the parts of us we've long forgotten. When we allow ourselves to feel, we realize that spirituality doesn't shout. It speaks in a soft voice, in the gentle rhythm of the breath. And perhaps that's why so many are afraid to be alone, because in that silence, everything we've avoided comes to light. But what if instead of fear, we could see this as a portal, an opportunity to nurture the soul and feed it from within, without relying on the voices around us? Sometimes we need that quiet moment to truly see what matters. Not as punishment, but as a moment of healing and rediscovery of who we really are. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How solitude, as dark as it might seem, can be the beginning of a powerful journey. 1. When retreat is necessary. There are moments when silence is not just an empty space, it's a sanctuary. Chico Xavier. It's as if there's a crack in the routine, a pause where life calls us inward. Retreat, so easily avoided, carries within it the secret of something much larger. It doesn't come as a burden, but as a delicate invitation to dive into what's been hidden behind our eyes. Have you ever felt that pull, even when everything around you insists on the noise? Sometimes, retreat arrives like an unexpected breeze, a need that no one else can truly understand. It might be a quiet sunset or a night when you suddenly realize you need to step back. Not because of a lack of love, but to give space to your own voice, the one that's been forgotten among the demands of the world. In that retreat, the soul whispers what words can't hold. In retreat, solitude becomes a gateway, not a punishment. It's there in the stillness that we can tell what truly matters from what merely fills space. The small worries that consume us begin to lose their hold. And in that moment, there's the chance to feel the gentle touch of spirituality, always there, even when we pretend not to see. It's in that silence that the presence of something larger reveals itself. Like the sound of the wind weaving through the leaves, almost imperceptible. Like the smell of the earth after rain. These are sensations that awaken old memories, that bring to the surface echoes of what we were and what we could still become. Because in retreat, the soul finds a fertile ground to bloom. Often, we resist that retreat. We're afraid of what we might find when we step back from the familiar. But that resistance is just a reflection of how we've learned to protect ourselves. Spirituality reminds us that retreat isn't total isolation. It's a path to growth, a quiet tending to the essence of who we are. When we allow ourselves that space, something subtle begins to unfold. The worries lose their bite. The answers emerge effortlessly, as if they'd always been waiting for our courage to look inward. Retreat becomes a safe haven for the tired soul. A silent embrace that holds us without asking for anything in return. And deep down, perhaps retreat is only a reminder that spirituality doesn't live in the noise, but in the quiet rhythm of breath that connects us to the now. In the invisible touch that guides us even when the world spins too fast. And so, we start to see that sometimes all we need is that retreat, but there's something even deeper to understand. 2. Solitude as a part of evolution. In the whisper of solitude, sometimes we find the voice of our own soul. Chico Xavier. Solitude can feel like a bitter sigh, an emptiness that echoes within the walls of our mind. But if we pay close attention, we discover that behind that silence lies a deep call, the call to grow. Because solitude isn't just an empty space, it's fertile ground where spirituality can flourish, free from the expectations of others. In that quiet space, we learn to hear what we never let ourselves feel. Like a distant echo reminding us of what we've forgotten, solitude becomes a mirror reflecting both our wounds and our strengths. Sometimes it hurts, but in that hurt grows a seed of self-discovery we could never find anywhere else. Spirituality, in this context, isn't dogma or the promise of quick answers. It's more like a constant whisper that becomes clearer when the outer noise fades. And solitude, so feared by many, is the doorway to that whisper. A doorway we're not always ready to open, but that, when we do, reveals the vastness of our own existence. It's in solitude that we find the strength of who we are, where we stop relying on the opinions and expectations that surround us. And there, in that silent retreat, spirituality becomes a beacon, lighting paths that once seemed invisible. Because sometimes, the true evolution of our soul begins in the moment we dare to be alone. Solitude also reveals our contradictions. It confronts us with the parts of ourselves we're afraid to show, the ones we keep quiet so we won't be judged. But if we face them, something begins to shift. We stop running. We stop needing others' approval. And in that silent act of courage, the soul begins to mature. Because in the silence of solitude, we learn things no words could ever teach. 3. Chico on inner silence as nourishment. When the mind grows quiet, the soul begins to speak. Chico Xavier. In those moments of inner silence, something ignites. As if every breath reminds us there's a hidden world waiting to be uncovered. Chico Xavier often spoke of how that silence is far more than the absence of words. It's an invisible nourishment that feeds every corner of our being, opening pathways we never imagined. It's curious how silence frightens us, as if it's a sign of emptiness or an unending loneliness. But when we look at it without judgment, we see that it holds a promise. Because in retreat, spirituality becomes a gentle whisper that soothes the rough edges of our doubts. And slowly, we begin to hear what we used to silence. Inner silence isn't about giving up on the world. It's about returning to what's essential. A moment when everything heavy falls away, like dry leaves in autumn. And in that letting go, we feel a lightness that depends on nothing outside ourselves, only on the certainty that even when it seems like there's nothing, everything is there. Chico Xavier understood that silence is more than a state. It's a portal, a space where what's been asleep stretches and breathes again, like the morning mist that slowly lifts, revealing the truth that was hidden behind the shadows. That's the nature of silence, a gift life gives us exactly when we need it most. Sometimes that silence can feel uncomfortable. It brings up voices we've avoided, echoes of the solitude that can feel so daunting. But if we stay, if we don't run, something shifts. We discover that solitude isn't lack, it's a way of giving ourselves what we've always sought outside. Acceptance, deep listening, and a gentle kind of love. Inner silence also has its textures, sounds only heard when we're willing to stay still. like the wind's murmur on a quiet afternoon, like the smell of fresh coffee in the morning. These small rituals ground us in what we are, what we've always been, and what we're still becoming. In that intimate space, spirituality stops being an idea. It becomes an experience. We don't have to explain it. We don't have to defend it. We just feel it as a soft pulse that steadies us, a quiet embrace that reminds us. Even when it seems like we're alone, we never truly are. But silence has even more to reveal. 4. Learning to listen in the absence of others, solitude, when lived without fear, becomes a mirror that returns us to our own voice. In the absence of others, we often discover the music of our heart, that quiet rhythm we forgot in the clamor of expectations. And then, something changes. We learn to listen to ourselves with the same tenderness we once offered to everyone else. In that space of silence, spirituality emerges as a whisper that reminds us we're more than the reflections of our relationships. In retreat, the true companion is ourselves, our memories, our wounds, our dreams. Sometimes what we need most isn't someone else's words, but the gentle echo of our own understanding. Learning to listen is an act of courage. It means stopping the search for answers outside, realizing that the ones we need have always been within. It means accepting that solitude isn't the enemy, but a door that opens into an inner world as vast as the sky on a clear night. And in that vastness, we meet who we really are. It's funny how, in the absence of others, the questions we've been avoiding begin to emerge. What do I truly desire? What do I need to feel alive? They're questions that often only make sense when silence envelops us. Chico Xavier said that silence is the food of the soul. And when we dare to taste it, we find that our own voice is stronger than we ever believed. Solitude becomes a sacred ground, a space where spirituality teaches us to honor every breath, every pause. Learning to listen is like feeling the earth's heartbeat beneath our feet, a reminder that we're part of something bigger, even when no one else is around. In that absence, a new respect is born. Because when we listen to ourselves without judgment, we stop demanding perfection. We learn to embrace our contradictions, to trust the quiet wisdom within. Like a river flowing in its own course, our emotions find a natural rhythm that is uniquely ours. In that intimate act of listening, solitude stops being a void and becomes a sanctuary. A space where spirituality breathes with us, where every thought grows clearer, more true. And little by little, the absence of others ceases to be a wound and becomes a chance to grow. But there's something even deeper to be born from this learning to listen. 5. Turning solitude into growth. Sometimes, solitude arrives unannounced, like a soft storm that clears everything away. But if we can see beyond the fear, we'll find that in that stillness lies a gift, the chance to grow. Because solitude isn't a dead-end alley. It's a hidden path where spirituality blooms, leading us to places we can only reach when we're brave enough to be alone. In the calm of that solitude, the soul finds its deepest nourishment. Chico Xavier knew this. Real transformation happens when we stop seeing solitude as an enemy and welcome it as a teacher. Every moment without company becomes a whisper, guiding us to what truly matters, to what was always there, but went unseen. Turning solitude into growth doesn't mean turning away from others. It means learning to embrace ourselves from within. It's letting silence reveal the truths we used to avoid. Like the sun peeking out after days of rain, our inner strength needs room to awaken, and solitude is the soil where that seed can take root. When we allow ourselves that quiet, we start to see life through new eyes. We discover that retreat isn't just withdrawal, it's a rebirth. Every breath becomes a reminder that we can live differently, more aware, more connected to what truly matters. And so, solitude stops being fear and becomes a promise of freedom. Spirituality, then, stops being a distant ideal. It becomes a gentle practice in how we listen to ourselves, in the tenderness we give to our own scars. Because when we're alone, there are no masks, just the honest heartbeat of who we are, echoing in each pause. Sometimes, in that silence, we hear things that hurt. But even that pain is a doorway. It reminds us that every tear, every hollow ache, is part of the process. That the soul's maturity doesn't come from easy answers, but from the courage to live through it all. And in that quiet bravery, we grow. Turning solitude into growth is like learning to dance with the wind. At first, the chill makes us shiver, but then we understand that the wind also brings life, movement, and a strength we didn't know we had. Slowly, solitude stops being a whisper of fear and becomes a soft song that stays with us. And there's still something even deeper to discover. And so, it all makes sense. Because in the end, spiritual solitude isn't a prison. It's a portal. A space where Chico Xavier's spirituality whispers that the absence of others is only the presence of what's essential. No matter how much we feared being alone, the truth is that every silence brings us closer to who we really are. But are we ready to accept that in this solitude, we find the greatest strength that has always been with us? Maybe it's time to listen to what life has been trying to tell us all along. The spiritual solitude we so often fear is actually a quiet gift waiting to be unwrapped. It teaches us that in retreat, spirituality stops being a distant idea and becomes a quiet, invisible embrace. Chico Xavier understood that every pause, every moment of stillness, is an opportunity to return to ourselves. Now, the challenge is to let this truth touch our daily lives, to see solitude not as a burden, but as a chance to grow from within. When we embrace that silence, we stop seeking validation in the voices of others. We start to hear the quiet wisdom of our own soul. That soft voice whispering, "You are here, and that is enough." Spiritual solitude isn't a wall. It's a bridge to a more authentic self, a bridge that brings us closer to the steady heartbeat of life, to the quiet power that has always been a part of us. The invitation is simple. When life calls you to retreat, allow it. Trust the wisdom in solitude and let silence guide you to answers beyond words. Spirituality doesn't need to be explained or proven. It needs to be lived. Let it touch your heart, like a soft whisper that lingers long after the noise has gone. In that quiet embrace, you'll find the strength you didn't know was there. If these words touch something in you, I'd love to know. What part of this journey resonated most? Share your voice below. Your experience matters too. And if you're ready to go deeper, take a look at the video linked above. It may offer more seeds for your own path of growth. Let's meet there, in that space where solitude becomes a companion and silence becomes a song.